Austin, how's it going?
Ben, good. How are you?
I'm glad I made that really awkward.
Yeah. It's always awkward when you start these things. So
Yeah, I don't do clean starts, and not even a clean enough one to edit a clean start. So
that's okay.
we couldn't not be in the same room and not try and grab a video.
Yes.
Really enjoyed your performance last night.
Oh, thank you.
Kind of slightly grittier, but still blissed out. Set seems thicker than I've maybe heard before.
Yeah. I think part of that's getting to play on a real sound system. When you're recording on, YouTube or whatever, you can only do so much.
Yeah.
Having the music come out in the air through the speakers, it's like a different experience, I think.
Yeah, of course. But there also seems to be some stylistic choices to just get, I don't know, pinned down, cleaner sub kind of vibe at times in the set, grittier kind of mids. Everything seems to be more, I don't know, is there more thought to how you're piecing together kind of frequency bands or?
Yeah, I think I grew up, going to rock shows, and I was really into post-rock and shoegaze stuff. So I try to bring some of that element in, playing live, really trying to have a physical, a lot of bass that you could feel and louder sounds that kind of grab your attention a little bit more.
Yeah, there's definitely some kind of My Bloody Valentine-ish moments.
Oh, yeah.
I think really kind of channeling that.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. So it'd be nice to run through the setup. We've done rig rundowns and live streams before.
For sure, yeah.
Looks quite different from when I saw you last.
Yeah.
We'll come to these couple of boxes in a minute, but what's the kind of heart of the system for either sequencing or clocking?
This is kind of the basis of the live case that I've been using for the last year or so. And that's the ER301 is basically the heart of the whole thing. And
so is that samples?
Yeah, I usually am working with samples or loops that I made the night before. Okay. For this trip, I made some loops and stuff with the Novation Summit and running it through some tape machines, most notably the Marrantz PMD 221, which allows you could put tape loops in there, but then you could use it as an effect. You're not recording a loop, you're using it, all the audio goes through it. Mm-hmm. So you get just these beautiful tape imperfections throughout the whole whatever you're playing. So I just built loops on that and then loading them in here.
And deliberately imparting really characterful sounds into the system. Yeah. That's been a really powerful thing for me and how I'm playing at the minute, just having these customized, really characterful, non-modular things. Sounds you ultimately can't get out of a modular or not exactly.
Yeah.
Something with imperfections in it.
I think when I do have oscillators and stuff in here, the goal is to try to make it not sound like that. So I'm always running it through effects and stuff. And I feel for me, I can make more interesting sounds if I start at that point with stuff like tape loops or other stuff. So it's definitely a very sample heavy bass, but it's all stuff that I've recorded myself.
How do you go about balancing samples and any synthesized sounds? Do you everything tune up nicely beforehand? I guess being digital primarily, you're not getting the drift that
I've had issues before.
Okay.
This particular setup, there's no live synthesis. But in the past, when I do use that, usually I'll have 2 or 3 different parts to go along with it. I mean, rings is the big one that I think people probably know me for. I'll have the 2 different rings doing 2 different things alongside the samples.
And unlike most, you're using the input, which it's intended for.
Exactly.
Creating these long, bold, beautiful, sustained sounds as opposed to the short, plucked ones.
And that's another thing. When the 301 is actually pretty good for that, because I'll just use up one of a channel and make these exciter sections within the 301. How the Elements has the exciter section.
Yeah, granular noises, clouds of harmonics and things.
Yeah. maybe I should talk about the signal flow of how it all works, because based around like this, where all the voices are in the 301, everything else is either effects or modulation. But yeah, I basically have the main channel output of sounds that I want to go through all the effects and loopers and stuff that I want to basically apply effects to. So I split that signal out into the different modules like clouds, magneto, morphogene, and also like I have a send and return module that goes out to the Odo BAM.
So is magneto, morphogene, and clouds, are they like insert effects? They're just straight through?
Yeah, they're just straight through and
then just blend in the dry wet.
Yeah, but instead of running them into one another, they're all running separate from each other.
All right,
so you can mix them in and out. And
you sum with
so
I
have like
modules.
A little mixing section here with the knob farm modules. So I have 2 of the Hyro, if that's how you say it.
Hyro, yeah.
Hyro, yeah.
4 HP stereo mixer.
Yeah, so I basically just have everything going into that. So all the effects get their own channel. And then I use the second one as like the end of kind of the chain before it goes outside the modular. Yeah. So I have another channel on the 301 of stuff that I don't want to run through effects, like basses or something that I want to have like field recordings and stability that's always there. But it's
I think
not
that's
going
what we were hearing last night. These kind of washed out, like crunchy, thick mids, but that retaining that bass, just taking something clean in the low end that can just punch and sustain.
Yeah, so
works really well.
They get their own channel on there, and then it all just kind of works.
Yeah, so I mean, any other key modules, any particular little secrets you want to share with anyone?
Sure. I mean, with clouds, I'll switch between the granular mode and the delay mode.
Okay.
Which I find the delay mode, like when you set it to one of the lower quality settings, like the 8-bit settings, it's very crunchy, like as a tape recorder would be. So that's another way, like I'll add some extra texture to things. Magneto, even though it's like a tape emulator type of module, it's actually a lot cleaner.
It's super,
and even when you add the
high end.
So I mean, you could still mess up the sound, but it's not quite the same as clouds, where it really gets into like it just disintegrates everything into noise. And I find that this disintegrates everything more into like a resonant type of thing when you
much
have feedback
purer. You can tell the kind of digital back end is just way not higher. Well, higher quality in a technical sense, not necessarily better in terms of audio, but it's a different thing. And the morphogene, is this capturing loops live?
Yeah, so I'll use it as like a live looper, and I'll just record stuff to different splices, and then what I'll do is just have a bunch of random CV go on to all the different parameters, mostly gene size and the slide and the shift and all that, organize. And I'll use that as kind of like a glitchy thing. It's kind of like in the background doing pitch shifting type of stuff. Or it could just be a regular looper. But usually I'll add like some granular type of textures with that.
And then that hits the analog heat.
Yes.
So there's a little bit of soft saturation going on, or?
Yeah, definitely a little bit of soft saturation. It kind of just glues everything together a little bit. Like even if some of the sounds aren't gelling quite together when I have them mixed in the 301, this will kind of glue them together, put them all like in the same.
It's like having the same, the band recorded in the same room.
Exactly.
Everything imparts some quality, even if it's not a big, spacious thing. Do you find yourself using the filters much in a kind of creative way, sweeping things in and out? Or?
Maybe not like quite sweeping things in and out, but more of like shaping the sound. Like with the tape loops, there's a lot of hiss and noise and stuff. So I'll kind of filter that top end off a little bit. And if you just bring the resonance up just like a little bit, it adds like a little air quality to it. I don't know how to describe it. It just sounds like it's adding like a little air to it.
Yeah, it's like when the frequency of the filter is high enough, it becomes like a little peak boost.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like the bass boost that people did on a Korg MS-20, where it's a high pass, which you would think, all right, it's going to cut the bass out. Well, if it's low enough and you peak the resonance, you kind of pull bass out. So that's an interesting trick. I've never done it that way around, using a low pass filter and just kind of peaking up some top
Yeah,
end.
especially when you have a lot going on. Like when I'm at the point where I have like 6 or 7 sounds going, I just slowly bring down like that filter and then slowly bring up the resonance, and it kind of just slowly changes the texture. I mean, very slowly.
Yeah. Finessed, minimal moves.
And I'll mess around with the drive control as well. Especially like on enhancement and saturation, those are not filter modules, but the heat modules. Those are very subtle, like right in like the 12 to 3 range before you really get it crazy.
That's a nice thing to have over the whole mix.
Basically, the rest of the setup is just stuff that I could add into the, in case I need it. I don't always use it. Like I have the Roaring Electronics LR, MS LR.
Yeah.
I'll usually use that with the Three Sisters. Kind of gives some like stereo enhancement to Three Sisters. And I'll usually run clouds back into Three Sisters and back into clouds, like creating like a feedback loop instead of using the onboard feedback.
Yeah, you color the trail then. Yeah, of course.
So I ended up not doing that during the set last night, but it's always there if I need it.
Yeah.
And then I use the Instro Tan kind of like as a limiter for that feedback because it can get crazy.
Yeah, that really nicely just kind of soft curves up into a soft little limiter. Any live patching? You mentioned doing this. Is it a case of you either do it live or you don't? Or
there are some cases where I'll live patch. So I'm live patching like on the Morphogene and clouds usually. I'll be plugging in random stuff or stuff from Tides or Stages or PAMs, just messing with the parameters that I think would work with modulation.
Well, that answers the question of modulation. Marble, Stages, PAMs.
Yeah.
You're primarily going for much kind of smoother modulation? Do you manage to use much stepped modulation? Or?
Yeah, I've mostly just have it set on random, almost on all 8 outputs. I don't really use too much clock within the system. Like I just let things kind of float in and out.
Yeah, and loops run and phase against each other. How are you finding traveling with this?
It's not too bad. It's definitely a little heavy on the heavy side this case with like the gig bag and everything. If I'm traveling domestically within the States, it's not that bad, but I did a small European tour this summer and I brought out a smaller case.
Okay.
By Black Hole Cases. I'm sure you've probably been in touch with them.
I've not been in touch, but I've heard of Black Hole Cases.
Yeah. They make like little smaller cases. I brought out a 42 HP 6U case.
And how much do you find the set changes when you have to condense the system? I mean, physically you lose a lot, but...
Yeah, I just had it down. I had to cut everything down to like the 301, and then I had to cut out one of Magneto Morphogene or Clouds, which is like the 3 pillars of what I'm doing. So I left Magneto at home, and then usually I control the 301 with the quadrats, the 1U quadrats.
Yeah.
But since that case doesn't have 1U, I got one of those slider. What is that slider?
16N?
Yeah.
Controller.
And of course, right before the first gig, I broke it by accident. So I was like, well, now I have no way to control the 301. And I just, had to go in by hand and like go in the menu and bring up the volume of like samples or like change patches that way.
And did it work?
It was a little difficult, but it worked. Yeah. I think it turned out okay. By the end of the tour, I was kind of had it down.
You had it down. The more kind of awkward version of the.
And then at that point, I wish I had the Magneto because it's just anything you run through, it sounds great.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you very much.
Thank
you.
you.
As you said, people are setting up for another event.
Yes.
Aircon's on. You're flying home today. So
Yes.
it's very nice of you to do this and let me pester you in person.
All right. Thank you for having me.
The internet. Cheers.
Cheers.